There is no sound on earth quite like it. It's not an engine purr. It's not a roar. It is a scream. A mechanical, unholy scream that shatters the peace of a suburban neighborhood at 2:45 in the morning. It's the sound of violation. Last week, that sound woke me up. It woke my wife up. It woke the neighbors 3 doors down. I sat in the driver's seat of my truck, my pride and joy, the vehicle that puts food on my table, and I felt the steering wheel shaking from the raw, unmuffled vibration of the engine. I didn't need to look under the chassis. I already knew. The hollow feeling in my gut told me everything. Someone had crawled under my truck in the dead of night, armed with a sawzall, and sliced off my catalytic converters. Most people would call the cops. Most people would file a report, wait 6 weeks, and get a piece of paper that means absolutely nothing. But I am not most people. And the 2 idiots who did this, they made one fatal mistake. They didn't check who owns the truck. They wanted a few $100 for the platinum in my exhaust. What they got instead was a one-way ticket to the crusher. This isn't just a story about getting even. This is a story about total, absolute deletion. If you're a truck guy, you know the feeling. Your truck is an extension of yourself. You tune it, you wash it, you know every squeak and rattle. When I looked under the frame that morning, seeing those empty spaces where the cats used to be, it felt like someone had broken into my bedroom. I checked the cuts. Clean. Professional. These weren't amateurs with a hacksaw. These were meth heads with power tools. They were in and out in probably less than 3 minutes. But like I said, they were sloppy. My neighbor across the street is a paranoid guy. He has cameras pointed at everything, his porch, his driveway, and luckily for me, the street in front of my house. We pulled the footage. 3:15 a.m. A car rolls up. Silent. Lights off. It wasn't a normal getaway car. It was unmistakable. The distinct silhouette of a Crown Victoria. And the kind used by police interceptors for decades. But this one was a ghost. Busted suspension, peeling paint, no hubcaps, and most importantly, absolutely no license plates. It was a zombie car, a vehicle that technically doesn't exist in the system. Perfect for crime. Or so they thought. I watched the footage on loop. I memorized the dent in the rear bumper, the way the driver's side door didn't close all the way. I knew this car. I'd seen it around town. It belonged to 2 local kids, wannabe gangsters who spent their days loitering at the chicken shack down on 5th Street, smoking garbage weed and looking for trouble. My wife asked me, "Are you going to call the police?" I looked at the footage. I looked at the damage to my truck, a repair bill that was going to cost me thousands. "No," I said. "The police act too slow. And I have a friend in code enforcement. You see, in this town, a stolen catalytic converter is a low-priority property crime, but a public nuisance vehicle. That is an immediate tow." Let me explain something about code enforcement that most criminals don't understand. Police need probable cause, warrants, and a lot of paperwork to seize a vehicle involved in a theft unless they catch you red-handed. But code enforcement? They operate on visual violations. An unregistered vehicle parked on a public street with safety hazards? That's fair game. It's trash waiting to be collected. I called my buddy, let's call him Mike. Mike works for the city. "Mike," I said, "I'm looking at a Crown Vic. No plates, no insurance, broken taillights. It's a hazard to the community." Mike laughed. He knew exactly what I was doing. "If you find it on a public road, tag it. I'll authorize the nuisance tow." The hunt was on. It didn't take long. Criminals are creatures of habit. They steal. They sell the scrap. Oh, and then they go eat and celebrate. There it was, the Crown Vic, sitting at the chicken shack. It looked even worse in the daylight. The suspension was so shot the frame was almost touching the asphalt. The windows were tinted with cheap, bubbling purple film. I parked down the block. and watched. The two kids were there, leaning on the hood, smoking. They looked proud of themselves, probably bragging about the score they made last night, probably counting the cash they got from the shady scrapyard across the county. I waited. Patience is the difference between revenge and justice. They finished their food. They hopped in the car. The exhaust on that Crown Vic sounded like a lawnmower choking on rocks. They drove 2 blocks over to a residential side street, a quiet street where they probably thought they were safe to crash for a few hours. They parked, they got out, they walked into a trailer park nearby. Perfect. The car was now on a public street, unattended, unregistered, illegal. I made the call. "Mike, I've got the package. Sending coordinates." 5 minutes later, I had the green light. Tow it. Now, hooking up a car in broad daylight when the owners are nearby is an adrenaline rush. You have to be fast. You have to be precise. I backed the tow truck up. The hydraulic whine of the lift sounded like music. I hopped out. Chains on the axle, straps on the tires. Lift engaged. The whole process took less than 90 seconds. The Crown Vic rose into the air, dangling like a dead fish. No alarm went off, because of course, the battery was probably held in by duct tape. As I drove away, seeing that piece of junk bouncing in my rearview mirror, I didn't feel guilt. I felt efficient. I wasn't stealing their car. I was cleaning up the streets. I didn't take it to my yard immediately. I wanted this to be by the book. I took it straight to the police station impound intake. We needed to run the VIN, Vehicle Identification Number. This is where the story goes from petty revenge to nuclear destruction. The officer punched the VIN into the database. He squinted at the screen. He hit refresh. He looked up at me, confused. "This vehicle," the officer said, "hasn't been registered since 2011. That's over a decade of ghost riding. It turns out the title wasn't even in these kids' names. It belonged to some guy 3 towns over who probably sold it for cash 10 years ago and never filed the paperwork. The car had likely been passed down through a chain of criminals, each one driving it until it died or got impounded." "So, what does that mean, officer?" I asked, playing dumb. "It means," he sighed, "that nobody can claim this car without paying 10 years of back registration, late fees, and fines, and they need the original owner's signature. The bill to get the car out would be roughly $4,500. The car was worth maybe $500 in scrap metal. The math was simple. This car was never leaving custody." "We're issuing a black title," the officer said. "For those of you who don't know, a black title is the death certificate of a car. It means certificate of destruction. It means this vehicle can never be registered, never be insured, and never be driven on a road again. It is legally garbage." "Take it to the junkyard," the cop told me. "It's scrap." Meanwhile, back on the quiet street, panic had set in. I heard later from a friend in the neighborhood that the 2 idiots came back out of the trailer and stood on the sidewalk, staring at the empty spot where their car used to be. They didn't call the cops because they couldn't. You can't report a stolen car that you use for crimes. They thought one of their rival friends had stolen it as a prank. They were running around town, checking parking lots, calling people, screaming at each other. The key lock on that Crown Vic was so worn out you could start it with a spoon. They assumed someone just hopped in and took it. Little did they know, their trusty steed was already sitting in the execution chamber. I dropped the car off at the local junkyard. The owner, Big Al, is a legend. He hates thieves more than I do. I told Big Al the story. "These are the guys stripping cats in the neighborhood." Big Al looked at the Crown Vic. He looked at me. He spit on the ground. "Say no more." Big Al immediately got his crew to initiate the prep process. They didn't just park it. They cut the drive shaft. They drained the fluids. They made sure that even if someone wanted to drive this car away, they would need a miracle and a mechanic team. But criminals are stupid, and persistence is the cousin of stupidity. Somehow, word got out. Maybe they saw my tow truck. Maybe someone talked. About 3 hours later, the two kids showed up at the junkyard fences. They actually tried to steal it back. Can you believe the audacity? And they found their car sitting in the to-be-crushed pile. Plan A was for one of them to distract Big Al at the front desk, asking for spare tires, while the other one snuck around back with a screwdriver to start the ignition. It was almost comedic. I was watching from the office window. The kid sneaks into the Crown Vic. He jams something into the ignition. The engine turns over, barely. It coughs. It sputters. He puts it in gear and slams the gas. The engine roars, but the car doesn't move. Remember? We cut the drive shaft. The engine is screaming, redlining, making a noise that sounded like a dying animal, but the wheels weren't getting any power. That's when Big Al walked out, crossed his arms, and simply pointed. 2 police cruisers were pulling into the driveway. They got arrested on the spot. Not for the catalytic converters. We couldn't prove that 100% yet without forensic evidence on the saws. No, they got arrested for trespassing and attempted grand theft auto of a vehicle they technically didn't own. The irony was delicious. But the best part? The show wasn't over. As the cops were writing up the paperwork and shoving them into the back of the patrol cars, Big Al looked at me and winked. "Hey!" Al shouted to the crane operator. "Fire it up!" The crane claw descended like the hand of God. It grabbed the roof of the Crown Vic. The glass shattered instantly. The metal groaned. The 2 kids were watching from the back of the police car. I saw their faces pressed against the window. Their eyes were wide. That car was their livelihood. It was their getaway vehicle. It was their mobile smoking lounge. The crane lifted it 30 feet into the air, and then it dropped it into the crusher. If you've never seen a car crusher work, it's violent. It's primal. The sound of the roof collapsing, the doors buckling, the frame snapping. It was better than any music I've ever heard. In less than 60 seconds, that Crown Victoria, that symbol of their petty reign of terror, was reduced to a cube of scrap metal the size of a washing machine. It looked like a toddler had ripped it apart just to see what was inside. Total, complete annihilation. The cops took them away. They've been out on bail for a few days now, but things have changed. I did a drive-by of their trailer this morning. Silence. No loud music, no smoke, but I noticed something in the driveway. A Jeep Liberty, beat up, no plates, rust on the fenders. I slowed down. I saw one of them peeking through the curtains, looking terrified. He recognized my truck. He knows now. He knows that if that Jeep Liberty touches a public road, if it crosses that property line by even 1 inch, I'll be watching. And Big Al has plenty of room in the crusher. You steal my cats? I don't call the cops to complain. I take your ride, and I turn it into a paperweight. Lesson learned? I doubt it. But at least the neighborhood will sleep quiet tonight.